Hello everyone, Linda Israel here, and today I have a stamping project and we're going to use heat embossing with it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I've got a couple pieces of paper here. These are approximately 4 by 6 inches, and this is I think it's kind of a watercolor cardstock. It's what I had in my stash, so don't get hung up on the kind of paper in this particular project. It's just a little bit heavier paper than, say, Textwake. And then I've cut a page out of a Bible. Yes, I know, a Bible. The Bible came from a thrift store. It had writing in it because it was a family Bible, one of those great big ones. I'll show you what it looks like. So it's one of these great big Holy Bible, family Bibles, and I just go to, in this case, I went all the way to the back, and I just cut the pages out of the book. I use an X-Acto knife, and I leave loose pages so that the next time I'm ready to use it, it's right there. If I'm doing a special project for someone and they're asking for a certain Bible verse, I'll look for it if I still have it and cut it out. So what I've got here is 2 pieces of paper, and I've got some distress ink. This is walnut stain. And I'm going to go around the edges of both of these pieces of paper, just adding a little bit of a distressed color to the edges. Now what I'm going to do is I've got the large No-clog writing cap on my Scrap Perfect Best Glue Ever, which the bottle is getting very worn. And I'm going to use just a small amount to adhere this Bible page to the cardstock base. And I plan to sew this. For this tutorial, I'll show you what it looks like without sewing, and then we'll see what it looks like with sewing. So I'm just looking at this, trying to decide which way I want it. I think I want to do it like this. I'm just going to lay this down and smooth it out. I want to stamp on this, and I'm going to be doing embossing. So the next step is really important because I've had my fingers all over this. The oil in your fingers will cause the ink to, the embossing powder to stick. So I'm going to use the Perfect Crafting Pouch by Scrap Perfect. It has a powder in it to keep things from sticking. So I'm just going to rub this over my card. I'm going to put a little bit on my fingers so that my fingers don't leave any more marks. And then we're going to ink up a stamp. This is an old stamp that I've had for years because this place is no longer in business. And I believe it's from Art Impressions. Maybe you can find it online. If I can, I will have a link for it, but the number is U2280. I know a lot of people want to know where I got my stamps, and you have to realize that I've been stamping for 26 years, so I have a lot of stamps, and I don't get rid of them. I know some demonstrators only keep what is current in a catalog. Well, I'm not a demonstrator for a stamp company, so I'm going to use whatever I have. So I've got a little stamp here, and I'm going to turn it up where the rubber is up. Rubber stamps can come in gray rubber, they can come in red rubber, they can come in clear. So it doesn't really matter when you're embossing, you just need a good stamp. And I'm going to use a product from Tuscanito, and I may be saying that wrong, but it's called Versamark. And what it is a watermark pad that on certain colors of, like a dark color of cardstock, it will change the appearance of the stamping, but keep it the same hue of your piece of paper. Well, it also doubles as an ink pad. It has a raised pad. Mine's a little bit dirty, but it doesn't affect the stamping. And we're just going to press this over the stamp, and it's sticky, so it's sticky enough that if you have a lightweight stamp, it can pick it up. So I would try to make sure I'm really generous with my ink. And now what I'm going to do is center this from top to bottom and side to side, and I'm going to give it a good firm stamping where I'm just pressing straight down, holding it in place for a moment so that the ink can transfer to the paper. You can't see anything right now, but we're going to change that. I put my embossing powder in a tub. This is a Gilded by Brutus Monroe. It's a nice little embossing powder. I've got a little measuring spoon here, and I'm just going to sprinkle that over the embossed area or the stamped image, and I'm going to tap off any excess. And if you notice, there's not any extra powder around that image. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid back on my powder, because I have found that if I don't, I end up with a mess. Well, now I'm going to use a heat tool. Let me get the right one if I still have it. I have the Heat It tool by Ranger Ink. It's a quieter heat tool. This is not a hair dryer, it's a heat tool. It's going to get really hot. You do not want to use it as a hair dryer, and a hair dryer will not work to heat the embossing powder because it does not get hot enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to heat this, and I'm going to move it around, and it will turn shiny. So embossing powders, unless it's a matte color, should be shiny. So once it turns shiny, you know you're done embossing that area. So I'm going to hold it around my image, slightly moving it back and forth, and then once I see it start to change, I'll move on to the next section. You also want to make sure that if you're doing this on a surface that it is a heat-proof surface. That's why I'm holding it up, because this cutting mat will warp if I put this down on the table and heat it up. So as you can see, it's starting to change from that dull powder look to a gold look. So I'm just going to keep rotating this paper around, and it's like magic. It just changes, melts that, and makes it a raised image on the paper. Alright, I think I have got that thoroughly heated. It will be hot, so don't touch it right away. You can burn yourself, but isn't that pretty with that gilded gold on there in that lion image? So to make this stand out a little better, the next thing I'm going to do is I've got Vintage Photo and I've got a blending tool from Ranger Ink. And what I'm going to do, my paper warped just a little bit, is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do circular motions around my lion image, giving him a little bit of color. And this is a fast way to color an image, so you're not spending all your time on it. So there we go, it's giving it a little bit of color. I've got a little piece of fabric here, and I have a set of words that I created on my silhouette, and I have these available in my shop. So what I'm going to do is, looking at this piece of fabric and the words, I'm going to just use some scissors here and trim off part of that fabric. And I want to cover up the white edge, because it's just the way that the paper shows through, with a little bit of distressed ink. I'm using the walnut stain. And then I'm going to adhere this down on the bottom. So I'm going to use the No-Clog writing cap with the best glue ever, because I don't want a whole bunch of glue because it will seep through the fabric. And I just need a tiny amount to hold it in place. So I'm just making a little perimeter and then a little zigzag down the middle. So I'm going to place this down here on the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same with the words. And I dropped it, so I'm going to wipe up that excess glue. I'm going to use the crafting pouch where I dropped that piece of glue so that it doesn't make my card sticky. Then I have some pretty little purple trim here. And I'm doing this because I'm making a special journal for a lady that likes lions and she likes the color purple. And this is just a trim I picked up. So I'm just going to find a little area here and snip off a piece. I'm going to add some glue to the back side. I'm going to place this right under the phrase King of Kings. And then I've got some gold trim here. And this trim, if you aren't careful and you cut it wrong, you end up with weird little pieces. And I think I want to do something like that. I'm going to cut off this excess. And then on the back side, I'm going to take the No-Clog writing cap again and just place glue in a few little spots to hold this in place. And I'm going to put this at the top to represent a crown. Now you may need to put something heavy on something bumpy like this, so I'm just going to use the stamp pad to hold it in place. My stamp still has that Versamark ink on there. If you leave it on there, it can mess up your stamp. So I'm going to use the Scrap Perfect Best Cleaner Ever and just squirt just a little bit on there. And then I'm going to use my fingers to rub over that stamp. Gosh, I can't even get the words out. And then I'm going to use a rag just to wipe that away. And that keeps your stamp nice and clean and conditioned and ready for use. Well, this should be dry. So here's what it looks like finished. And then I'll show you one where I have sewn around the edge, so you can see the difference between the two. Let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see better. So you can see where this one has the stitches around the outside and this one does not. I plan to go ahead and stitch on this one, but I just wanted to show you what the differences were on this video. Well, I hope you learned a little bit about heat embossing when you're doing rubber stamps. To make sure you keep that heat tool moving, let it turn shiny, and then move the heat away so that you don't scorch your paper. And of course, using fabric and trims, you can, on things, just use the Perfect Girl Glue, which is the best glue ever by Scrap Perfect. Well, thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Of course, comment below what kind of stamping do you like to do? What kind of cards do you like to make? So this one's going to be a journal card. So think about even your greeting cards, the fronts that you make, you can turn those into a journal card for your junk journal. Let's see, check the description box for my links to my blog, my social media, as well as the products that I used here today. Look at my Facebook groups. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification bell that's at the top. And thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate every view, every click, every comment. They all matter, and I greatly appreciate your support. Have a fabulous day. Bye.